Earlier this year, I started working on a beat tape called Dog Days. Now, I'd had the idea for this concept for a really long time, and I just never really had quite enough beats to pull the trigger on it. So at the beginning of the year, I was not really doing much creatively. I couldn't really come up with any lyrics for any of the songs I was trying to write. And so it kind of seemed like the perfect time, especially with all the beats I've been making on YouTube, to make a beat tape. And honestly, this thing came together so perfectly. Like, it was seamless, and it really just kind of, it felt like it was making itself at one point, honestly. But again, I had never made anything like this, so I didn't know the first thing about how to arrange a beat. I had kind of vague ideas from watching my buddy Squid. So in this video, I just want to go through some of the different things I did to put this beat tape together. So let's get started. Now we're going to start off with the one that started it all. I titled this one The Vibe. And I made this beat on live stream in July of 2023. So like some of these beats, man, let me put myself over here. So like some of the beats on this album were years old. And they were beats that I'd always wanted to write to and never could really think of anything. So as you can see, all the grayed out parts obviously are muted. I did do a scratch track for some of the tracks on the album with a scratch pad. I tried not to overdo it just because I've never really done that before. We have the vocal sample right here on track 13. And this all right here is the beat. And so we got the kick, the snare, the hi-hat, open hat, perk, crash, another two perks. And then the main melody with a pad and the flute. So if you've seen any of my beat making videos, you know that sometimes it'll feel like I've put too much on there. I kind of pile things on so that you can take things in and out. Like you see how the flute is only really in the song for about 16 bars total. So the little middle part plus the fade out plus most everything drops out for the vocal sample, which happens in most of the tracks. Again, my streaming software can't recognize Studio One for some reason, so I'm gonna have to just play the audio file. But we'll start where the vocal sample comes in.
This has happened before in cultural history, where some huge enterprise, like Christianity or patriarchy, something like that, after playing, running the game for millennia, it just runs out of steam.
So I got all vocal samples but one from different speeches from Terrence McKenna. The only one I didn't get from Terrence McKenna was from Alan Watts. The song Live in the Present is a sample from a speech by Alan Watts. And honestly, I made the album pretty well chronologically to how I made the beats, or at least to how I arranged them. So, you know, obviously I was going for a sort of spiritual vibe, very contemplative in the spiritual realm. It's a lot about psychedelics, about DMT, mushrooms, everything. But, you know, I wanted it to feel relevant to current events. I wanted it to feel, I wanted it to be able to tell us some type of story. The next one is called Horizon of Transcendence. So for Horizon of Transcendence, I did something a little different. It's very similar with the intro and then the vocal sample, but I came up with like a sort of hook for this one. And I really liked the way it sounded. I didn't feel like I needed to put raps on it, obviously. So to me, it sounded perfect the way it was. So here's what it sounded like.
I think that we will find out what it's like in other people's heads, and that this will be quite startling, actually. And that's why it's important to give people these very powerful and intuitive authoring tools.
Bring the kick in right there.
So that they can build these things, so that they can show
Bass.
what their internal horizon of transcendence is like.
Coasting through the sky, I'm trying to see where it leads. Keep up the light, yeah, but they don't see it. Coasting through the sky, I'm trying to see where it leads. Keep up the light, yeah, but they don't see it in me.
Now, I was pretty proud of that of that drop right there. That I took a lot of time trying to decide what to keep in, what to take out. The snare roll was a big one, obviously. Pretty much just left in the kick, the main, and the snare roll. But that drop was the whole part of it for me. So yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on the DAW that you're using, really. I use Studio One because that's what we've used all along, so we know it well. I've just started getting into like mixing. You know, I'm barely into it. One thing I forgot to mention is that this album was mastered by Squid Essential. So go check him out. I'll have all of his links in the description. And shout out to Squid for mastering the album. It sounds fucking awesome. I added, I didn't do much on this. Damn, I thought I did way more than that. Oh, okay, there we go. I was going to say, I did an EQ on the main, the bass. There's something called Track Spacer, and I guess I can show it without the sound, but what it does is it daisy chains, or it side chains whatever you're using to another track. So I side chained everything to the kick. So when the kick hits, it ducks it out a little bit, whatever percentage you set it at. I've got it at 18. And then on every track for the overall mix, I used what's called the IM pusher. And I'm only vaguely familiar with this. Honestly, I've just been doing it a similar way every time. Put a little bit of body in there. What you do is turn down the input, and then you'll put this push up just a little bit. The high end, if you want more high end, and stereo image. But it helps it, especially with the push, to not peak. So your main mix won't be peaking. Very, very helpful with shit like that. So Depart for the Stars. And this will be our last one. This one is old. This is from December of 2023. This one was also on a live stream. I don't remember which one because I'm just going off my TikTok right now. But yeah, so I made this one in 2023, and I tried writing to this a million times, and it just never happened. But it was perfect for this beat tape. It's basically the whole idea, honestly, summed up into one track. The entire idea of the beat tape.
The mushroom said to me once, it said, "This is what it's like when a species prepares to depart for the stars. You don't depart for the stars under calm and orderly conditions. It's a fire in a madhouse. And that's what we have, the fire in the madhouse at the end of time. This is what it's like when a species prepares to move on to the next dimension. The entire destiny of all life on the planet is tied up in this. We are not acting for ourselves or from ourselves. We happen to be the point species on a transformation that will affect every living organism on this planet at its conclusion."
So yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I will say that creating this beat tape was huge, instrumental into getting me back into writing lyrics. Since I started making this beat tape, I've written over 12 verses in a month, and now I actually have an entire rap album just about ready to go. We got to do some final takes here after the move. But first ever beat tape was a 10 out of 10 experience. Would and will absolutely do it again. I actually forgot to mention, too, what I used for the vocal samples. I used something called the Magic Dice, as well as the Magic Switch. And then I tuned every vocal sample down by 4. So you'll see it right there, transpose -4. Gave it that deeper tone. And then the Magic Dice kind of helped to have it sound more ethereal. And then the Switch just gave it this weird tone that I liked, so I put it on everything. But yeah, if you like what you heard, go check out the rest of the beat tape. I will be announcing the new album as soon as I can. We'll have a date for that as soon as possible. And I know I haven't been doing a lot of beat making videos. We'll be getting back into that ASAP. We're going to be doing some vinyl sampling, especially once we're in the new house. The setup is going to be absolutely insane. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for subscribing to the channel if you already have. Don't forget to do that if you haven't. We're going to be very busy this year. And most importantly, keep a gangster out there. Papa P Light. All right. Goodbye.